In this video, I'm going to talk about something called the shadow self. Now, you may have heard this before, you may not have, but this is a hidden side of ourselves that we may be, or usually are, completely unaware of. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the shadow self and how it can actually help you. So sit tight, we'll get into it right now. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about something called the shadow self. Now, this was a term that was coined by Carl Jung, who was a famous psychologist, and he studied more esoteric concepts such as synchronicity and the unconscious self, the part of ourselves that we are unaware of, not our conscious ego. And he discovered, or in his, what he believed to be true, is that we have different sides, we have different personalities, different sides to ourselves. And one of these, he called these archetypes. And one of these archetypes was something called the shadow self. Now, the shadow self, it sounds very evil or ominous, right? It's the part of ourself that is hidden, or that we hide from ourselves, actually. So the shadow self could be something that our conscious ego refuses or denies or refuses to accept or refuses to admit that we have this part of ourselves. This is like an inferior part of ourselves, or what we consider inferior about ourselves. And it's a part of ourselves that may come out at different times or seem out of character. So we're going to give you a couple things about the shadow self. Like I just mentioned, the shadow self can come out at times, and it seems very out of character for us. So it seems like not part of our normal personality. It could be like we suddenly have like an outburst of anger one day, or we find ourselves really crying, or some sort of like emotion or some trait within ourselves that we usually don't exhibit or show to the world, or even to ourselves. Now, the shadow self is it plays a part in how we experience things around us and how we experience our emotions and communicate with other people and stuff like that. Usually the shadow self is considered like a darker part of our personality, and like I mentioned, it comes out when we least expect it. So it could come out as anger, it could come out as these limiting beliefs that we didn't know that we had, or it could come out as like not being able to get along with somebody. So all these traits that are kind of out of character for our normal personality traits. And what happens is our conscious ego is unaware of this fragment of ourselves, of our personality. And what Carl Jung, what he believed was that the more you keep it hidden, the less you acknowledge this part of yourself, or you're unaware of this part of yourself, the denser it becomes. In a sense, the more powerful it becomes in your life, and the more it will start coming out more and more as you get older and as you progress in your life. The second thing is that the shadow self is not always negative. So a lot of times it sounds negative, shadow self. It sounds like a very ominous, evil thing, like I mentioned, but it doesn't have to be. So the shadow self is more how it's part of ourselves that we perceive as inferior, but it can also be positive. So we could have a shadow self that is very confident, or that is more like an extrovert, or a part of ourselves that we didn't know that even existed. Because maybe we are insecure in real life, or we're needy in real life. We don't realize that within us we have this other fragment of ourselves, of our personality, that can come out and actually help us communicate with other people and be able to influence other people and stuff like that. The third thing, the shadow self can actually help us understand ourselves better. So if we can become more aware of different parts of ourselves that we keep hidden, we can free up that energy. See what happens when we stuff these emotions down, or these parts of ourselves, and we repress them. We repress them, we repress them, we repress them. We never let this part of ourself out. Then what happens, the energy in our body, it gets stuck, it stagnates, and what that does, it's not able to move freely throughout our body. So the more we can bring out or become aware of our shadow self, these hidden parts of ourselves that we have, but on an unconscious level, the more it can help us free up the energy. So in a sense, it can help us be more creative, more inspired in life. It can help us communicate with other people better. The more we are unaware of what we have going on a subconscious, unconscious level, and the more we stuff it down and we keep stuffing it down, the less balanced we will be in our lives, and the less we'll be able to communicate or function on a daily, in our daily lives. So how did we get our shadow self? And how do we, if the shadow self is hidden, how do we discover what it is? Or how do we find this hidden part of ourselves that we never knew we had, or that we do not acknowledge with our conscious ego? Well, the shadow self can, it can come about through early childhood, through, through either like family, where, family is always telling you need to live a certain way, or society is telling you need to fit into this mold or these certain standards. And what happens if there's some disconnect. So this mental discomfort that we feel early on, whether in our childhood or whenever we actually start attaining this shadow self of us, it's called something called cognitive dissonance. So it is the difference between who we think we are versus who we really are. So if there's a mismatch there, and it starts early on, this is how we can actually develop this shadow self, or attain this shadow self within ourselves. How do you find out? How do you reveal this part of yourself, this hidden part of yourself? Well, number one is to get more in touch with what's going on in your subconscious, unconscious mind, to become more aware. And you can do this by, you can journal. So just writing out, your thoughts and what's going on inside your head, instead of always just living from your conscious side, your logical side. You can do like automatic writing, journaling, just whatever's going on, write it down. The second thing you can do is meditation. So meditation is great for bringing out stuck emotions, bringing out suppressed parts of yourself to the surface, okay? The darker parts of yourself to the surface. You can use meditation for yourself, or you can go to like a professional, do like hypnotherapy or some other kind of healing modality that will help you release that stuck energy. If you really have a lot of like repressed emotions, repressed energy inside your body, and there's really dark stuff hidden underneath that you're trying to bring to the surface, you may want to see somebody who specializes in this healing modality to bring out those emotions in a safe environment, because sometimes it can be scary for us. If we've stuffed deep down the darker parts of ourselves that we don't want to acknowledge or admit that we have, then sometimes this stuff can really, when it comes out, it can be very uncomfortable for us. So that's where we may want to seek the help of other people that really specialize in this kind of thing. So you're doing it in a safe, protected environment for yourself. The third thing, and this is an interesting one, is to observe what you find inferior in other people. This can give you a clue to what you may feel actually that you are inferior within yourself. So a lot of times when we look at other people and what bugs us about other people, or what we think is a fault or a flaw in other people, could actually mean that is part of our shadow self coming out. What we consider inferior about ourselves, actually. So if you think somebody is lazy, or you think somebody is needy or insecure, that can actually mean that you have some insecurities and neediness to you because you're observing them in other people. So it's interesting how you can, the things that bother you about other people, or other people's, what you consider inferior in other people, may actually be a sign that that is part of your shadow self and what you are actually perceiving as inferior about yourself without even being aware of it with your conscious self. So the shadow self, it sounds scary, but it doesn't have to be, okay? It can help you actually understand more about yourself, to help you actually see what's going on in your unconscious mind and what you are repressing within yourself, what you perceive as inferior about yourself. And once you can acknowledge these or observe these or bring them out of you and not have them hidden anymore, this can help you in your life maintain more balance. It can help you achieve more in your life. It can help you be more creative. It can help you be more inspired. It can help in your relationships with other people. So just because this is like a dark part of yourself doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. So you always have to find the good in the bad, right? The yin and the yang. When there's dark, there's light. Where there's light, there's always dark. So there's always a dual, there's always two sides, and that includes your personality. So if you have a shadow self, we all have a shadow self. If you don't know what parts about yourself that are being repressed, then try some of these things out and see if they work for you to kind of get to know yourself better. And see how once you bring them out of you and you actually acknowledge them again, how it helps you in your daily life. So with that being said, that's all I got today, guys. If you have not done so, please subscribe below. I put out a video every single morning, and I appreciate it so much. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the content here. And other than that, I will see you guys on tomorrow's video. So have a great day. Peace.